Thank you, Jill, for joining me today. We
Mhm.
are here to discuss the latest article for EL called Leading Together, Time to Power Up Teaching Practice.
Yeah.
So before we even get into it, how did you get to that title?
So the title, Time to Power Up Teaching Practice, I think came from inspiration from the quote that I used at the beginning of the article. And so just to take a look at it, I quote Nelson Mandela, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." And as we are in this dual pandemic and we're all, huddled in our homes with anxiety and trying to figure out, what's happened and what's going to happen, we think about ourselves as educators as a key influence, a key power, a superpower. I like the way ASCD chose a super
Yes.
representative, but if we can't use this as a way to advance where we need to be in the world, no one can. We're positioned to do that. And so when I think about this notion of education being the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world, I just like the strong language of that, the way
Yes.
it really helps us to think about how we're taking this up as our superpower, taking this as our challenge and our charge to make the kind of changes this world needs to see.
I love it. I also have a t-shirt that says teaching is my superpower.
Yes.
So thinking of that lens, the whole superhero, what are some things or what teachers have this cape with their superpowers.
Yeah.
So what are the essentials teachers need to carry with them on their cape? And what are some things they can leave behind with their Clark Kent outfit?
I love that analogy. That's a great question. Well, I think one of the superpower that we need to take with us is the power to collaborate, the power to connect with one another. We, of course, need to be connecting with students and with families as well. But when I think about the notion of creating the kind of education system that we want to see that can serve each and every student, there's no way that any individual teacher has what they need to serve each and every student. The only way we have that power to do that is collaboratively. We all have complementary knowledge and skills. We all have really different perspectives. And there's no reason why the students sitting in front of me should only be limited to the assets and expertise that I have.
Right.
Each should benefit from the expertise that exists throughout our school. And so this notion of sort of hunkering down and siloing yourself and just sort of, doing what you're going to do for your students is really a disservice to students. I hope people leave that behind in the phone booth and the Clark Kent phone booth.
Yes.
I like to see teachers finding ways to collaborate. But I think that's where this article tries to provide a reminder that it shouldn't be teachers working against the system to collaborate.
Absolutely. And I love how you reference the 5 core propositions. Like they're solid, right? So if we can all just go back to those 5 core, what does that look like from a leader lens?
So the important thing there is that if teachers are committed to students and to their learning, leaders, school leaders, and of course I always conclude teacher leaders when I'm thinking leaders, that's teacher leaders and principals, and other kinds of roles, coaches, etc., need to be thinking about in what way is the school designed for teachers to really know their students and their right? And teachers shouldn't have to go searching on the internet as we all are these days and scrambling around to, find the books that we can find that can help us to more deeply understand the different perspectives when creating a student profile. I mean, I know so many teachers who create these elaborate and really well-developed templates to really develop a student profile and know students from an emotional, a physical,
Yes.
from all different perspectives so that they can really understand those entry points. But why is each teacher creating this on their own? And why can't we come together and create some professional capital and do this? It shouldn't be despite the system. I think as a school leader, school leaders need to be thinking about how am I creating the space, the time, providing the resources, and one of the ones, you know, that I advocate is a site license to ASCD, right? The teacher needs to have access to our knowledge base, and it's really well accessible, and teachers shouldn't have to work like independent agents to figure that out. That's what school leaders need to do.
I love that, and that connects with teachers think systematically about their practice and learn from their experience, learning from each other. I love that. You speak of collective capacity when referencing the proposition teachers are members of learning communities, such as an ASCD if they choose to do that, or whatever community their leader sets up for them. How does this link to collective efficacy?
Collective efficacy is so important, and you know, increasingly, I think all of us could tell you that, right? Anecdotally, we know that we're stronger when we're stronger together, but research is really documenting the tremendous impact that when teachers working together understand that they can make a difference and believe in one another and trust one another, they're willing to take the kind of risks that they take. They have the psychological safety to put themselves out there to go beyond what we're currently doing, right? We don't need to have the kind of trust that allows us to kind of work together and be collaborative in kind of a kumbaya way. We need to be able to trust each other deeply enough to go where we've not gone before, because our schools need to be pushed where they haven't been before. And so in order to take those risks, we need to come together as a community. We need to believe in each other, believe in our capacity to do this. If we organize ourselves that way, and we shouldn't be organizing ourselves that way despite schools. We need school leaders and school structures to be creating the spaces we need for that.
Awesome. You mentioned the word reorganize. So to that, what does the reorganization look like for you? I call it the Rona reset. But what does that reorganization look like for you in a perfect world, despite these pandemics?
You know, in a perfect world, schools have nested teams. You know, everyone's working with their grade level team. They also have time to meet in vertical content. And in addition, in a perfect world, every teacher in the school is a member of a school-wide leadership decision-making team. So the schools I work with often have, you know, an instructional leadership team, a school culture team, maybe a PBIS would be the team, maybe a family and community engagement team. These kinds of teams ensure that decision making is informed by the intel, the specialized intel that teachers have from their classrooms. And I think that every teacher, to have that sense of collective efficacy, needs to know that they have a place where they can really have an impact on the kinds of decisions that are pushing the school forward. And so that's one of the ways I think that it would look. There's just plenty of time built into the school day. And I understand that that's expensive, that there's ways that it's tricky to release teachers and structure that. Some schools do it by adding time on the day with stipends. Other teams do it by partnering with community partners.
Right.
Teachers have more release time that can be allocated for this kind of teaming. But teachers simply need to have time together to interact and think about these ideas together.
Thank you for that. And our final question, what are a few things that teachers might do right away to start focusing on these essentials during remote learning?
Right away. Well, right away to me is the study the 5 core propositions. There's a booklet, what teachers should know and be able to do. It describes these 5 core propositions that I've laid out here in much more detail. In addition, the National Board for Professional Teachers has convened standards committees for each grade span and subject area, and use those committees to describe what accomplished teaching looks like, what these 5 core propositions would look like in each of those areas. And your tax dollars have already paid for it. So it's free, go download them. I just think that everyone needs to have a copy of their standards. If you're gonna plan to be a teacher, why wouldn't you plan to be an expert?
Absolutely.
Know why anybody would plan to join teaching and not at least take a look at what teaching excellence looks like. Most of us were prepared, licensed, and provided professional development based on state licensure standards, which are basic entry-level standards.
Right.
That's, you kind of meet those before you enter the classroom. That's no bar. I want the students teaching my children and my neighbors' children to be teachers who have thought about what does it look like at a high level? What does it look like at an accomplished level? So the notion that hundreds of teachers, thousands of educators from across the country have convened to really describe in detail what accomplished teaching looks like for my area, middle school English language arts, or for early childhood generalists, is a tremendous resource that is free. Teachers immediately should go download them and mark them up. Where do you see yourself? Where do you want to grow?
I love that. Time to grow during this reset, this reorganization. All right. Any final words for our readers?
Any final words? I guess the final word I have is really just regarding this, pandemic situation we're in. I keep calling it the dual pandemic because I'm experiencing so much increased, not only attention to historical racism, but now new forms of racism that even I'm experiencing in my world. And it's painful, it's challenging. And as well as, of course, COVID and the fear about, who's going to get sick and when, and nobody even knows if they have it. It makes me think, though, about the threats to equity that could really be opportunities. And I hope that readers and listeners are always thinking about how to turn this fact that we have to do something new into making sure that what new thing we create is better, right? There's new opportunities for people to shift their mindsets. There's new opportunities to shift the way resources are allocated. And there's new opportunities to reprioritize what we're focusing
Absolutely.
on. Kind of what this article does. It says, look, we got to focus somehow. We got to streamline. Let's focus on the priorities, And it's an opportunity. You got to find the hope in a difficult situation like this. And I think
find the hope. Yes.
I think so.